What's a secret your family doesn't think you know, but you do? My nan and grandpa are cousins. I'm from Yorkshire, England. My dad didn't go to another state for a job opportunity. He went on a coke binge. I absolutely adore my mother. She's a single mother who got a master's in education while taking care of three of us all the way up to working being a head of department in the DOE. I've never seen her drink, shout, act immature, act out in any unbecoming way, etc. My whole life, the one thing people commented on was how classy my mother is. Then 2 years ago when moving out, I ended up accidentally taking one of her boxes of papers from the attic thinking it was mine. It was full of court documents talking about an affair my mother had with a married colleague, where she allegedly got so upset he ended it that she started to stalk and harass him and he filed criminal charges on her, as well as brought it to HR at her former job. The things he says my mother did in those documents, I can't imagine in 100 years. Yet I also couldn't imagine her having an affair with this guy at all, but she admits it in the paperwork. I know why she left her state job and we moved to DC. Basically, there was some kind of deal made where she would leave and it would go away. And the criminal case was also pretty much dropped with the expectation and deal she would never contact him or bother him again. Like, what the fuck? It's made me really realize that you don't know anyone really. My cousin's dog didn't run away. I was with my uncle drinking on the porch, and we watched that poor pup get snatched off the ground by a massive hawk. A blink and it was gone. There was nothing we could do. We looked at each other after a solid few minutes of silence, and he leans over. That fucking dog ran away. The fact my grandmother basically ordered my father to give my old sister and I to the States since we were too rowdy. The part they know I know now, because I vocally expressed my knowledge, is that my dad cheated on my mom while she was pregnant with my younger brother. There are a couple parts they don't know I know, and one they don't even know themselves. My dad actively took me to see his mistress, my now stepmom, while he was still with my mom. I was really young, but I remember being around her while my parents were still married. It didn't click for me until I got older, and the rest of the family was really mad when I told them. The thing I know that my dad and the rest of my family doesn't know themselves is that my paternal grandpa continued to give my mom $1,000 a month on top of what my dad paid in child support because he was pissed at my dad for cheating. My mom actually told me a story about my dad trying to bail on a dinner where the divorce was going to be discussed, and my grandpa straight up said, "You're taking your fucking bitch ass to that dinner." My dad started favoring the kids he had with my stepmom, and my grandpa wasn't having it. Until the day he died. He would secretly give my brother and I extra for Christmas, birthdays, etc., because he knew the other two kids were getting treated better. My mom told me many times that my grandpa was the only member of my dad's side she truly still loved after the divorce because of everything he did. My grandparents paid for the house my mom and dad lived in, but my dad wanted to leave it when he got remarried. He didn't want the memories from it. Note that this house was 3 years old and really expensive. My dad threw a fit because he wanted to build a new one-family farmland. This pissed the rest of my family off because it was active farmland. This fit split the family in half and it's still not fixed. My aunts and uncles still don't like my stepmom because of her role. My dad drunkenly called me and told me my younger brother is my half-brother. My mother doesn't know that. Long story short is that my mom cheated on my dad and didn't tell him. My parents were married. My dad caught my mom red-handed cheating on him. My dad beat the shit out of the dude who my mom was with. They got a divorce and then later remarried. I know my parents do their fucking best to keep that a secret, but all 4 of their children know, however. It's really one of those things that's rarely talked about. My parents borrow lots of money from me because supposedly they owe it to an Italian businessman. But when I went to the bank, I saw they had paid the amount to an Austrian bank. Never asked them the explanation. That my uncle, deceased, was a registered sex offender. I was never introduced to him, and my dad, his brother, would never speak about him. I was told he passed away, and the excuse of "you have never met him" was the reason I couldn't go to his funeral, yet my parents have dragged me to people's funeral that I never even saw before. They weren't even related to me. I got suspicious and searched up my uncle's name up on one of those sex offender lists, and his name came up, plus his face. Turns out he was caught touching a 3-year-old child at a park a few weeks before I was born. Scary. My parents were probably just protecting me. That my grandfather cheated on my grandma with her best friend. Karma did him dirty. The best friend took his money when they were divorced. And that my father cheated on my mother when she was pregnant with me. My father is the son of the cheating grandpa, by the way. Such a fucked up family. I discovered that my mom had a secret husband, she divorced him, that no one knew about. I do the family history research for my family, and I discovered it by accident. I asked her about it discreetly, and she begged me not to tell anyone. Said not even my dad or brother knew. She died in 2003, and I still haven't or won't tell a soul. My wife was sexually, physically, and emotionally abused as a toddler by her mother's boyfriend at the time. Plus, she was an absolute terrible mother in many other ways. My wife's mom has never talked to her about it, and she has no idea that we know about it. We only know as my wife's grandmother spilled the beans. I don't even think her husband knows about it. It's all kept on the hush as my wife's grandmother doesn't want my wife's mom to find out she told her. My wife's mom has secretly been taken out of her will. She is leaving all her money and a house to our children. It's a really complicated family dynamics, and there's also a lot of complex trauma. It's easy to say from the outside to say, just cut them off. CPTSD is a real cunt of a condition, karma will come around. My brother got arrested and went to court for multiple drug charges. They went out of their way to hide it from me so that they could continue to act like I was the disappointment. They pretended they were going out to breakfast without me and rubbed it in my face to cover up his court dates. I'm 99% certain that my brother, born 3 years before divorce of my mom and dad, is actually my half-brother and his dad is my stepdad. My mom was cheating on my dad with a dude who was to be my new dad. To cover this shit up, my mom made me a bunch of terrible lies about my dad. It turns out, twin brother in utero tried to kill me, he kidnapped us, my dad always hated my brother, etc., etc. That made me cut contact and plan his death for 35 long, angry, and wasted years, until I discovered all the lies. Unpacking this shit with my stepbro, we're tight, and we came to the same conclusion that my brother's real father. The tragic part was, all these lies really fucked with me and my brother's heads. My bro committed suicide at 18 with no note. For years I tried to figure out why he would top himself, and now I'm all but certain it was due to the Jedi-level mindfuck my mom's attempt to hide her infidelity. My anger was channeled into rage, his went to sadness. Miss you, bro, you shouldn't be here. You'd have loved my kids, my little girls just like you. My grandpa had an entire secret family. He even named his mistress's kids the same exact names as my mom and her brothers. No one knew until his funeral. They all think I was too young to remember, but I do. My parents could not afford an abortion when my mother got pregnant with me, so they tried a half-dozen folk remedies to end the pregnancy. I was first told by someone who was trying to hurt me, and at the time it did. It was later confirmed by another person who misunderstood something I said and thought I was referring to this. The two people do not know each other. I don't hold any ill will towards my parents since I also know the unbelievable financial pressure they were under at the time. They couldn't afford a third child, and I was a surprise due at birth control failure.